Well, welcome back to Old Women Who Write. I'm Jean Palin, your host, and my guest today is Ann Abel. For those of you who watched part one, this is part two of talking about Ann Abel's books, High Hopes. Do you know, Ann, it's impossible to say just one of your names. You gotta say Ann Abel.
My parents called me Aunt Sima because they thought the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah. I always say because I talk to
It's
Ann Abel, or I'm going to interview Ann Abel.
okay.
Right. Anyway, so we did a part one. We were talking about the amazing experience that Anne created for herself, and how it has affected her life. And so we were going to talk in part two about what happened when Anne came home from an incredible trip to Australia, where she followed Bruce Springsteen around to 5 cities and 8 concerts, and what effect this trip has had on her life. And so, Anne, before we talk about what happened when you came home from that trip, take us back a little bit about what is it about Bruce or the music? I know you might want to read something to us or just talk
Okay.
about it, either one.
Well, for one, I'll give three examples of things that moved me about him. And one night, he came out on an encore. This was in Sydney, and he sang "Dream Baby Dream," and I felt as if he were imploring himself to dream. And watching him sing this, I realized I'd never even thought about dreaming, that I'd always been so busy trying to do what my parents told me to do and hoping that each achievement would have them finally accepting me, that I never thought about what I wanted to do or be. But that night, watching him sing Dream Baby Dream, after I floated out of the arena that night feeling like I could dream. Now, it didn't happen right away, of course, but I believe that once you feel something, it's easier to recreate it. So that was like kind of a light bulb thing, like watching him, like he transmitted that. And when I've talked to people about that song, trying to explain it, when I was actually on E Street Radio, and the man I was talking to helped me, and he said the song just makes you feel like dreaming, like it's, that's why sometimes music is so important, because
Yes.
you can't put it into words. Like, you just listen to that song and it just make it, like, my whole body just loosened that night. And so that is an example of one song that was kind of like, yeah, wait a minute, yeah, I've never done that. And then another night he went back and forth across the stage saying over and over, "How do you get through the day and stay alive inside?" And he's like lumbering back and forth. And I thought, wow, if Bruce Springsteen can say this to an arena full of fans, I must not be the only one feeling like this. It's okay to struggle and try again. I felt validated, see. And now I'm not saying all he did was sing songs about depression, but I believe we see art through the prism of our own eyes. And those were some of the songs that really spoke to me. I mean, I liked them all, but those songs just really made me kind of sit up and say, wait a minute. Yeah, if it's okay for Bruce Springsteen to feel like that, it's okay for me to feel like that too. And then, of course, he is so much fun. And until I went to his first concert, I had never done the three-letter F word, fun. And I'm still not that good at it. But you go to one of his concerts and that, he delivers. And so I have something I kind of, if I could read it, and I'll try to read it
Wait a
fast.
minute. There was a third song.
Well, it was the fun. Well, another song that my first concert, he sang "If I Shall Fall Behind." It's the
Yes.
most beautiful song I had ever heard. And standing in the audience, I reflected back on 35 years of marriage and how many times and how naive we were at 25 when we took our vows, and how many times I had lost my way and Andy was always there holding out his hand, waiting for me. And he once lost his way and I was there waiting for him. But hearing him sing that, it just like crystal, and that's another good thing about music is how it just brings like these feelings and thoughts together and helps you see them in a really clear way, or I think it's feel them in a really
Yes.
clear way. And
Yeah.
once you feel them, you've got them, you can bank them and you have those feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So read to us. your
All right.
words.
All right. I'll try to. So, um, on the way to my eighth and final Bruce Springsteen concert, I thought about what blockbusters the previous seven concerts had been. Each concert had been completely different. Mostly they varied in the way Springsteen released his energy. Some he began in high gear, others he worked his way up. Sometimes he'd gone up and down. Always he delivered heartwarming, soul-soothing, goosebump moments, but each time in a different way. Riding to the concert that night, I told myself there could be only a finite number of ways Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band could present and perform their High Hopes tours. I didn't think they would be able to add a new or novel twist to this, their final concert in Australia. I knew, of course, that Springsteen wasn't going to come on stage and mechanically run through a set list of songs from the album mixed with sign requests from the audience. I knew he would make sure that all 12,000 of us in the audience had a good time. But I had never heard of an extraordinary baseball player hitting a grand slam or even a home run every time he went to bat. Bruce Springsteen was an extraordinary performer, but I didn't expect him to hit a musical grand slam or even a musical home run every time he took to the stage. Not every night had to be spellbinding. But that's the thing about magic, the thing about Bruce Springsteen. One moment you're sitting with your feet on the ground, your butt in the chair, thinking about what you're going to eat after the concert, what you're going to do the next morning. Then Bruce Springsteen appears on stage, and when he does, you jump to your feet. You clap, you dance, you jump, you sway. Goosebumps pop up all over you. You're not thinking about the past moment. You're not thinking about the next one. You're simply and wholly in each and every moment, following every footstep, every heel tap, every strum, every word, every muscle ripple of the man with the smile. Sometimes beatific, sometimes mischievous, sometimes mournful, sometimes soulful. As you follow this man with a smile, as he anchors you to each moment, he's also anchoring himself to you. You do not feel alone. Feelings blossom from deep down within you. Some make you gleeful, some make you sorrowful, some make you wondrous. You don't think about why you feel these ways. It doesn't occur to you to break out of the moment to try to understand what's happening to you. It's enough that you are in this place at this time with this man, with these people, ensconced in this feeling. You do not think that you have been cast under a magnificent spell, a spell that awakens every single cell in your body, a spell that fills every single cell in your body with pulsating life. You are not thinking about feeling alive. You are alive. You are alive in the here and now. You are alive with this man, with these people. You want for nothing. You have it all.
Wow.
So to me, that was the magic of Bruce Springsteen.
Yes. I'm really glad you read that because I thought about in our the first half of this interview, we sort of rushed by him. That's what it felt like, you know? Because
Uh-huh.
I was focused on different things, so we sort of zipped by. And this both pays tribute to him and to the magic. To the-
Right.
So thank you for reading that. I really appreciate it.
You.
Um, So for those of you who haven't listened to or watched part one of this interview, so and spent weeks and in Australia following the Bruce Springsteen concert tour and experiencing some things she had never experienced
At
before
the age of 60.
at the age of 60. And when she came home filled with the excitement of what she had learned and how she of excitement and information and knowing, just knowing that people would see her differently now, and they didn't. The they being family and friends. They
Mhm.
they did not respond in the manner you thought they would. So let's pick it up there. So then what? Does Anne
All
go
right.
back into depression? What happened?
Well, there were some days. Now, what happened was my husband of 35 years, in addition to us, I mean, he was throwing dishes, our crate and barrel dishes. We had to replenish our dishes. And one day I finally took one and threw it at, I mean, we were just fighting. We were really fighting. He had a divorce lawyer. But meanwhile, he'd been unhappy. He works at the Wharton School at Penn, and he had been unhappy for a couple of years. Some things had happened. He didn't feel they appreciated him. And, he's a big boy. He can take care of himself. He'd been there 30, 40, 30 years at that point. Anyhow, I come home and I see him and I was like, Andy, you've got to go visit another school. He had sabbatical time coming to us. You've got to get out of here. You've got to. So he picked up the phone. He called a friend at the University of Chicago. In 20 minutes, it was all set. So January 2016, we packed up our SUV with our three little dogs and we headed out like the Clampetts there to Chicago. And he went off to work and he was as happy as he could be at the University of Chicago. Meanwhile, it's 8 degrees out. Um, I didn't know. I signed up for improv. I flunked out of improv, if you can believe flunking out of improv. But then I came home. It's again 8 degrees. I don't know what I'm going to do. And my new dog walker's there. And I said, "What do you do when you're not walking dogs?" And she said, "I tell stories at one of the city's many storytelling open mics, and I also tell stories at the Moth." Now, I had never heard of storytelling or the Moth. But I knew I had this one story to tell, the story about my trip to Australia. And I suffer with terrible writer's block. 12 people had asked me before I went on the trip to write to them. And that was all do you know, I wrote 1,000 pages of emails from Australia. But I came home about a month after the trip. I opened them up and looked, and I had to shut them right away because the energy in these emails, it was just like jumping off the page, just my enthusiasm. But then here I was now, people were squashing me. Like it was so disappointing. I just shut down the emails. But then I knew I had this story that I wanted to tell. I'd never stood in front of a mic or on a stage, but I forced myself to go to open mics and I started working on the story. And then a friend took me to the Moth. And when we got there, he said, "You've got to put your name in to try to tell a story." And I was terrified. That doesn't stop me. I was the last storyteller of the night and I tripped on the stairs as I went up. The lights were so bright I couldn't even see the audience, but I told the story. I could hear the audience gasping and laughing and connecting, and I won that night's story slam. Now, again, my parents, until the days each of them died, told me that I not to talk to them because I had nothing interesting to say. But now audiences at these open mics, people from curated shows are asking me to come and tell stories. So I thought, well, that's what I'll do. There was a man, I was 65, he was probably 75, and he would tell stories about life. I thought, that's what I want to become. I want to become an elder storyteller about life. So I contacted a coach and she took me by surprise. The first thing she said was, if I could wave a magic wand and grant you one wish, what would it be? And I thought she'd want to know my goals as a storyteller. And without even thinking, I said, well, write a book. And she goes, well, that's what you've got to do. And I knew she was right. And for 3 months, I didn't do it. And I just, each day it got worse and worse. And finally, by the end of 3 months, had such self-loathing and such,
Oh,
just so horrible. So I said to myself, look, you work out every day. You never want to do it. You do it. You don't question it. So one day after I worked out, I just went up to my desk, looked at the clock. It was 11. I said, you're going to sit here till 1 o'clock. And meanwhile, I printed out all these emails. So I just started on the first thing. And then what happened was anything that popped into my head, any story that it triggered, I would just write it because if I started thinking, does this belong here? I would have just deleted everything. And you say it's 400 pages, this book, and yes, it is. The first draft was 1,000 pages.
oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. And then what happened was during the lot, and so we're in Chicago, and then we're only supposed to be there 4 months, but I loved it there. I mean, there was this story, the arts community, the storytelling community. You could go to theaters, they have great theater there. You just park right in front. It's just it's cold and the weather isn't good, but everything else was great. So we extended it to 6 months, and then we had rental furniture, rental everything. They were coming, the furniture people were coming in 2 days, and I just looked at and the lease was up. I said to my husband, I'm not going back to Philadelphia. And he said, what do you mean? You have no place to live? So I called the rental company. It was a big apartment. They had one upstairs. So I moved upstairs. And for 2 years, Andy commuted from Philadelphia to Chicago. And then it was clear that this was, and I was telling lots of stories, like lots of storytelling shows. And then it was too much. You can't commute. And he would have moved to Chicago, but it was too cold for me, and we don't have family. And I think I'm an East Coast person. So he said, well, you're the one who's not happy. You decide where you want to go. And I just said, okay, New York. And we moved here in 2018 after, I left my house in 2016 in Philadelphia that I had lived in for 35 years.
Mm.
I ended up going back once. I mean, that was it. I never went back there. And coming to New York, it was all part of this process since I came back from Australia. Like I just had this energy and I needed to go where there were going to be people who were going to help me keep this energy going. And moving here was one of the best things that I could have done for myself.
Yes.
And so that's and then, and so then while I was writing High Hopes during the lockdown, and an editor had it forever, and someone kept saying to me, write about Milo, write about Milo. And I said, I can't, I have writer's block. And then I found 50 pages that I had written 15 years earlier when he died. So I quickly had a beginning, middle, and end, and it was much shorter. And I thought, you know what, this seems like a more straightforward story. I'll try to get this out into the world. And someone I had met at the Moth in Chicago had just posted on Facebook about She Writes Press. So I sent it into She Writes Press and they took it. And then I went back and worked on High Hopes. And then also the way I got into the social media was when Maddie and Milo and Me came out. She Writes Press said, in Book Lawrence said, you should get on social media. And I was like, oh God, like all I knew was Facebook. Someone had put me on it 15 years. So we're in New York now. Another dog walker came in. She's now a friend. And I said, do you know anyone who does social media? And she gave me the name of that he was then 19, Arseni, who did social media for her. He's a computer science major. And as I say, I now call him Maestro or Steven Spielberg. We went to Paris together with Andy. Andy had to go for a conference. He was supposed to go out a year ago in September, but he had all these surgeries. He couldn't go. So they postponed it till June. Meanwhile, we've been for social media. All we ever did in New York before started this was go to doctors during the week and plays on weekends. That's all
Right.
we ever did. But then Arseni said, okay, we've got to start getting out and going, and people want to know about New York. And then I don't like doing these things, but I love to share. I love to share stories, ideas, places, anything. So people liked seeing the video. So it made it fun for me to do things. And I'm still marvel. We'll go to these viral cafes or whatever. And there's like this is what people do in New York. They go
Yeah.
and so, and then someone said to me last March, well, look, people like seeing your videos and maybe you should go with Andy to Paris. So Arseni and I went with him to Paris. I mean, and remember, I still don't like to travel. And then last June, Arseni says to me, Ann, we're kind of running out of things in New York. I was like, okay, well, what do you think? Where should we go? He said, well, Japan is viral. So do you know what? We're going to Japan in May. And I still don't like to travel, but you know what? I'm a little intrigued about Japan.
Now,
That was
now
it.
let me interrupt you
So
for a
this is
minute.
all from Australia.
For those who don't know, when Ann says, "So I learned about social media and I got Arsenio and
Okay, yeah.
to help," what they don't know is just majorly she's talking about TikToks. It began on
Well,
TikTok posting posts
On
about
TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, I have over
all the same time. Okay,
720,000 followers.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, on
300,
TikTok, you have 500,000
no,
followers.
no, like 338, but who's
Oh,
counting?
well, okay, right,
Point four, point four.
338,000 followers on TikTok. And because they are as intrigued as I, and they don't even know. I doubt if they've read High Hopes, but they are intrigued with you as a person, which is really so opposite from how you saw yourself for much of your life.
Right. Well,
So
I want you to know though, don't say people do on TikTok.
I
That's
know
what
there
the
are ugly
publisher
people.
said. TikTok people don't. She is so wrong. First of all, Maddie Milo and Me is She Writes Press all-time best-selling memoir.
Oh,
And
for
it all
goodness sake.
started with our first viral, it was doing okay. And then we had a viral video in November,
Yeah.
like millions of views. and everyone's writing, I'm buying your book. I'm buying, like you saw my apartment and now and
Yeah.
they just, every time we had a viral video, Maddie, Milo and me would spike.
Wow. Yeah.
So
That's great.
people do
It's
need books.
wonderful. It's wonderful. I mean, she was sort of playing it down, just so I went on, but she went on with a big splash, which attracted many, many followers and admirers, and some naysayers and some ugly
Right.
people. There are ugly people out
Yeah.
there who
But I just
love.
want to say, at first, when people were writing and they're like, Anne, your voice is soothing, it's calming, and I was like, wait a minute, this is surreal. What are these people I don't understand. I would just tell stories like about my life and and I just didn't understand it. And then finally said, Anne, just believe what they say,
Yeah,
because it was like as if these people were the antidote to my parents' toxicity. It was the opposite of what my parents had taught me my whole life.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
I don't, so I still don't feel like the followers describe, the person followers describe, but when we do a video, I think about what people say and I just turn off my brain and try
Yes,
to do it.
yes, yes. Okay. So now let's take us up to what year was it when you did the first time the E Street, you co-hosted the
That
show?
was in 2014, like a few months, 6 months after I came
Soon
back.
after you got back. Okay.
2014, right.
This is what I wanted to tell the viewers about this. When I discovered what kind of brain is in Ann Abel's head. She got back, and one of the things she did to sort of keep the music going
The
in
energy, the
life,
Bruce
yeah,
Springsteen
yes,
energy.
yes, was that she had met Bruce Springsteen's longtime manager in Australia, who had told her about a benefit dinner or occasion she was putting on because she had lost a daughter, a child, and from a disease, and this was a benefit to benefit research into that disease. So Anne made Andy go bid on that because there was a silent auction for co-hosting the manager's husband, who was a, what do we call him, a historian of rock music,
I
an
mean,
expert.
he's a critic, and I mean,
Yes, had this
yeah.
show called E Street.
I think it was live from East Street Nation, maybe,
Okay, okay.
but
And so Anne is, up until this point, has had some exposure to others, but decided she wanted to co-host that show, tuned into the show and discovered that he, as a host, was A, extremely boring, and B,
mean and mean.
mean-spirited, mean to people, just seemed wanting to put them
People would call
down.
up and say the sky's blue, and he'd say he literally would call people morons. One
Right,
person called in and said, I have a friend who doesn't like Bruce Springsteen, but I'm taking to a concert. What album should he listen to? And he just starts screaming at him,
right,
why are you wasting your time on someone? And I'm like, oh my God, what's he gonna do to me when I'm
right.
sitting there beside him?
So, knowing this, Anne decided to become an absolute expert on rock and
Well,
roll.
the best I could. And, and then as I did it, I decided, okay, not just rock and roll. It ended up, and do you know my favorite thing I learned? Do you know what rap stands for?
I
Did you
read
know
it.
that?
I
That was
can't.
my rhythm and poetry. That's what I learned among
Yes.
other things. I thought that was so
So
cool.
she did deep dives into Tupac Shakur, into
Everyone.
everyone. So that, and what was the time period from the benefit to your co-hosting?
That was March, and then I co-hosted in October. And what happened was in the summer, we have a beach house. We got down there in July, and so and I'm get terrified. I wake up at breakfast after I read my newspapers. I Googled Bruce Springsteen. I guess the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame came up, and there was Bono. I think it was inducting Bruce Springsteen. So I Wikipedia'd Bono, or as my husband came and I go, oh, I'm reading about Bono. He goes, and it's Bono. And Andy used to, because I knew nobody. grew
right.
up in this cult, and Andy, some days I would sit there for 3 and 4, and every day I watched another rock and roll induction, and whoever was being inducted, and then I would Wikipedia them. A friend of mine said, "Em, you don't," and I would print them out. I had piles of Wikipedia pages on the dining room table. A friend said, "And you don't print out Wikipedia pages," but and I was just studying, and any book I read about in the paper that was reviewed with music, I got it. Any concert, summer was a big time for concerts. I would get tickets. I ended up in London. I thought I was seeing Chrissy Hind. It was the Pet Street Boys, and it was really good. But I went to a Jay-Z Beyonce concert. I mean, knowledge is power. I thought knowledge is power, and that was
I have
what.
never known anyone who can find it, research it, and store it as you can.
Well, I brought in pages and pages of
Right.
to the radio
So
station.
Anne shows up for the show, and the guy is as rude in person. He doesn't look at her. He just looks down at his desk. He doesn't speak to
Uh,
her. He doesn't
the
acknowledge her.
night before, I was so scared, I decided I wasn't going to do it. And then I got like 2 hours. I got up that morning, and we were at a hotel here in New York, and I started working out. I thought, I know, all I'm going to do, I'm going to go. I just wanted to say what my favorite 6 songs are. I don't need to say anything else, just my
Right.
favorite 6 songs. And we get there, the guy's late, and he goes off to the bathroom, and I always have to, so I follow him, and I said, Dave, can I just say my favorite 6 songs? He goes, you can say your favorite 100 songs. I don't care.
Right.
And that was all I needed to hear. And
Well,
and then okay,
then what happened is that for the next half hour or hour,
no hour. It was an hour
for the
solid.
next hour, Anne talked rock and roll with this
Yeah, and he
man
was great. And he was,
who, what is clear, his respect for her grew and grew and grew and grew in their conversation. My respect for you went, holy moly,
well,
you were
can I
talking
just
about
my
music as liturgy. I mean,
Oh, wait, so the way I got his attention, I said, okay, my favorite song is "Dear Mama" by Tupac Shakur. He was not expecting that, and he just looked. Never made eye contact till the end. But and then this is my favorite. He said, "Well, Bruce wrote a song about his mother," and I said, "I know, The Wish. He played it at the Hunter Valley concert." He goes, "No, he didn't. He doesn't play that very often." And then he says to the guy at the panel, "Vinny, when's the last time Bruce played whatever?"
yeah,
It took him, and then I saw Vinny smile. He kind of looked at me, and then he goes, "Dave, it was the Hunter Valley." He started calling me professor. He started calling me professor during the show.
yes, yes, yes.
And then at the end, then Joan Jett came in, and all the people I had studied, I had never heard of Joan Jett. But anyhow, so the second hour she comes in, and she's the star, and that's fine. They moved me down to the end. Andy's off he's off in Siberia there. And then she said something toward the end that I knew. Okay, so this guy, Dave Marsh, I had read on my Wikipedia pages that he had coined the term punk rock. So Joan's there talking. She goes, "Yeah, when so and so coined the term punk rock." And I said, and this is the second half. I was letting her have, and then I just stood up. I got up to the mic and I said, "Well, actually, it was Dave who coined that term." And for the first time in almost 2 hours, Dave made eye contact with me and he said, "And you're absolutely right. If you look punk rock." And then Joan goes, "Oh, wow, I guess that's a pretty big deal. Sorry." And then right there before he signed off, Dave said, "I want to say this on the air now. And you're the most knowledgeable guest host I've ever had. Anytime you want to come back, you have an open
And she
invitation."
became that in like 6 months, folks. Do you get it?
Like three,
You
three,
get it?
but yeah,
3 months. Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
right.
it's what terror will do to you. I just like needed to, the more I knew this. But what I want to say is, before I went to Australia, I was terrified. I couldn't pack. I'm not that kind of person, but the terror had just made it so that I couldn't pack. But when I was terrified about going on this show, after I came back, instead of becoming immobile, it fueled me. Like I was
Yes.
terrified, but I took control and it wasn't. So it was a different, I dealt with it differently.
Yes, I get that. I want to, we're zipping through our time. I want to read something from the last page of High Hopes. It wasn't until I came back from Australia with things to say that I understood no one wanted to hear me. No one wanted to hear how transformative the trip had been for me. No one cared that, as terrified as I had been of going on the trip, I had gone and come back stronger. No one was interested in knowing me. This was particularly apparent because it stood in stark contrast to the appreciation and admiration I'd received from strangers on my trip. While I was in Australia, I began to see myself through the eyes of these people. It was the first time in my life that people looked at me with a sense of interest and admiration, even awe, like the young man who told me he wished his mother were more like me. The positive words I received throughout my trip planted the seeds of a positive view of myself. Yeah, that's what this is. That's what this did. And I'm so happy for you,
Thanks,
that you
Jean.
had this happen to you in your life.
Sometimes you just have to push, if you just don't, I think the moral, if there's such a thing, just don't give up. Just keep trying. Just keep trying.
Yeah,
And maybe something different. It's never too late to start feeling better. It's just never too late. It's just not.
yes, yes. Thank you for not giving up on Ann Abel.
Oh, well, thank you. And I say I didn't give up on Milo either, so I just
That's
trans.
right. That's right. All right. Well, you guys, thank you for coming back for part two. I know you're glad you did, and I hope you will get a copy of High Hopes and read it. My one of my two daughters, who she reads all the time, but it's mostly fiction, mostly I don't know, but fiction. Um, and I was telling her about High Hopes, and she said, "Oh, could I read it when you're through? Do you have the book?" And I said, "Yeah." And said, "Could I read it?" And I said, "It's 400 pages." She said, "So what?" I said, "Oh, I'm putting my reaction on you."
Yeah, I know.
Right.
It's thicker. It's
Yeah.
thick.
And
It's thick.
she said, "I would love to read it." So, that I hope everyone out there will get High Hopes and read it and enjoy Anne, how Anne is changed and is changing and making changes and good changes in her life. And you
Right,
did it, not Western medicine, not.
right, right.
So thank you. And I hope you will come back again sometime soon to be with us and hear about old women who write. This is one of the finest right
All
here.
right. Well, thank you very much, Dean. It was really a pleasure.